And that's why I call her AR-15.
I give you the very next day, you boom, boom, boom.
Great debate. Angela Rye and Steve Cortez. We've had this conversation before, you and I, Steve, where I get the need for physical borders. I've never gotten the priority because I knew this was coming. We are not a wall away from dealing with people who are presenting themselves for asylum. And we haven't given the resources or the political attention. The president has not made a sell on this. Why?
Okay, well, Chris, nobody ever said that we're a wall away as if that's a panacea, as if that's a silver bullet that solves the entire problem. That's a straw man argument that's been set up by a lot of people on the left to try to criticize the wall.
I disagree.
It's an important tool. It's one that Customs and Border Protection tells us we need, but it's not
for
the
this
silver bullet.
Disagree, but I've always argued to you,
by the way,
why do you keep emphasizing what the wall will do? It'll stop the murders, it'll stop the drugs, it'll stop the terrorists, when that was all BS.
Okay.
And the real flow problem you have,
what the wall would do,
it doesn't address.
Okay, what the wall would do right now, if it were built, and unfortunately we can't snap our fingers and make this happen.
Let's say you had the great wall there. Yes.
It would force these people then to do it the legal way, which is go to ports of entry, because it would be too hard to get over or underneath the existing wall, and they would have to do it the right way, not the lawless way. Now,
but the
I agree with you,
system
though,
can't handle the flow.
Changing our asylum laws is what's really necessary here. Our asylum laws are being gamed and abused. 90% of people from Central America historically who apply for asylum are not eligible for asylum. Asylum is meant for people who are being persecuted because of their race or their political beliefs or their religion, not because you're from a bad neighborhood. That is not a reason to come for asylum, legitimate asylum, to the United States. And you know one reason why, Chris? Because a lot of Americans live in terrible neighborhoods, a lot of black and brown Americans. And I'm not about to tell American citizens that we're going to take in Guatemalans only because they don't have safe neighborhoods.
Let's bring in Angela. Angela, look, just to shape the debate here. The president hasn't been talking about this. It's been all wall, wall, wall. The wall is all. And now we see what we have seen, but now they think it's going to be worse than ever. And they're not set up to deal with this crisis because nobody's been giving them what they've been asking for years.
Well, and I think that's exactly where we need to start. I would love to respond to Steve's shenanigans, but I think the substance of this discussion is far more important. So when you talk about the hearings that are coming up tomorrow, there are 4 simultaneous hearings tomorrow, DACA recipients talking about their experiences and why it's so dangerous for this administration to terminate the program. The CBP commissioner, and the data that we're citing is from the CBP commissioner's testimony, not all the way fact-checked. We know that they have a retention problem. We know that they have a staffing problem. The wall doesn't solve that. We also have Secretary Nielsen testifying before the Homeland Security Committee on the House side, and the Department of Homeland Security's Inspector General testifying before the Judiciary Committee. My point is, before the Appropriations Committee. My point is, there's a lot happening to determine the facts around this. What is not good is for us to continue with the nonsense, with the propaganda, with the fear-mongering that Steve is using, talking about people's bad neighborhoods. And they're escaping bad neighborhoods. These people are experiencing trauma, and then after they experience the trauma in their home countries, they get traumatized by being separated from their children once they reach the border. That is something we need to be discussing. CBP should be apprehending criminals. They should be apprehending drug dealers, not separating families. That is the heart of this discussion. That is why Democrats in the House majority have to get to the bottom of this so they can actually legislate with facts instead of with fear.
Yeah, look, Steve, I think that's the part to respond to. You go to the boogeyman. The asylum laws are being gamed. These people are illegitimate. And instead of just dealing with the reality, you're not going to hear DHS or CBP say what you're saying right now tomorrow. They're going to say, look, here's what we're worried about. These kids are coming. They're coming with their families. And overwhelmingly, that's what it is. It's not this BS that the president's selling, that these kids are being recycled and they're being reused and they're women with tape on their mouths. That's all BS. That's what somebody's feeding him that's not true. And then his people have to cover for it. Here's the truth, Steve. I got no time on this show for BS. I know what's true. I know what isn't. Here's what's true. These kids are coming with their families. They're not set up to help them. They want to. They care. They're good men and women doing the job. But they don't have the resources. And this president has not made that a priority. So now you got your money for the wall that he's going to cobble together with this national emergency. What's he doing on this?
Okay, look, I'm glad you mentioned CBP and their opinion on the matter, because let me quote what the commissioner said. You showed a tape of him earlier. He said, quote, crossing with a child is a guarantee of speedy release into the United States.
Yeah,
that's what he said.
Well,
so don't tell me that kids are not being used as effectively tickets for entry into the United States.
No. Be clear.
Adults.
Be clear. Be
so
clear.
sad.
Okay, be clear where you are. You got to be precise on this show. I'm saying that what the president said about kids being recycled, that they're not really with their parents and that people are using the same kids again and again, that's BS. Is the system is the system susceptible to kids creating a problem of how you hold them, how long you can hold them, where they have to be released? And we don't want to separate families. So yes, the system winds up being vulnerable to that.
But here's why. People respond to incentives. They're not dumb, right? These are smart. These are economic migrants. We need to be real about the terminology here. These are not persecuted people. They're not persecuted for politics, for religion, for race. We do know because 90% of their claims are rejected. And we know because those countries, Guatemala, Honduras, and El Salvador, we know that they are not countries of political persecution.
All right, but
They
fine.
are
Let me
poor
hold you there.
places.
Let me hold you there.
Objective standards,
And
Steve.
so
It's
are a lot of
objective
neighborhoods in the United States.
Let me tell you, they're not going to get any better if you keep cutting, if you cut the money to them.
You should throw that talking point as far as the East is from the West. Like, please don't say that again about bad neighborhoods in the United States.
Let me give you an actual solution. Here's what the president should do. It's time to declare, and by the way, I'm glad the New York Times and other liberals have finally realized what we've long known, which is that there is a crisis at the border. I'm glad they've woken up to that fact.
No.
What the president needs to do actually is another...
If you want to be straight, be straight. He's selling a crisis that is a BS crisis. He's selling this boogeyman, this brown menace that's coming across the border to take your women and kill you.
No, Chris.
That's what he's saying.
He
doesn't want to talk about kids and parents because it doesn't drive fear. Own it.
No, but listen, No, you're the one establishing a boogeyman when you say brown menace. The president has never used that phrase.
What is it?
He has never
They're coming to kill you. They're coming to drugs. They're coming to rape. And some, I assume, are good people.
Drug dealers and rapists, Steve. And I don't know why you're turning a blind eye to it. Of all people on this segment, you should be the last one turning a blind eye to it.
Because
it's
a lawless...
No, you should be offended.
Actually, the opposite is true, Angela, and I'll tell you why. Because most of the time, if you read the stories about the victims of illegal immigrant crime, the victims are Hispanic. Look at the victims of MS-13. If you read almost all of those stories in the paper, you will see on the victim side a Hispanic surname.
Are the kids MS-13?
So some of them are. Some of them are. Absolutely. The point is, a porous border encourages all kinds of illegality, all kinds of national security and economic security problems for America. I think the answer actually, though, is relatively simple. The president needs to declare another emergency declaration. He needs to suspend the way we process asylum right now. You can no longer, if we want to be sensible, cross our border illegally, throw your hands up and claim asylum.
Here's the good news.
Because it's being gamed and abused.
That is not fair. That is really not fair.
Here's the good news.
Whose lives are in danger.
90% of people don't get it.
Here's the good news.
90%
but that's about how you process, not the reality.
Stop fighting. Oh my God.
But Angela, here's the good news. There's an opportunity here because the president has bought into a rationale of fear. You have to fear who's coming across. That's why you do what I want. We build the wall. Okay, that's his push. He's not going to get to have it both ways. That's why he's quiet about the real crisis. We'll see what happens tomorrow. It's an opportunity for Democrats. I know they're doing their oversight. This is an opportunity to jump on. He can have his wall. We're going to make this right for the people who matter, these kids and families who are coming across. I don't hear that urgency from them yet. Some of this is new. Some of them is not. Do you think that's going to be an adjustment?
Well, I have to say this. I think Democrats, since before they took over the majority, they have been doing this oversight. Congressman Thompson took a delegation of members of Congress to the southern border to do just that, right? So they're doing what they're supposed to be doing. They're not supposed to legislate out of your behind. It's supposed to be rooted in facts, not this 80 to 90% number that Steve keeps throwing out that's based on a subjective standard. You are supposed to do exactly what you need to equip CBP, to equip ICE, to ensure that they are staffed up and they are targeting the right people. It's not supposed to be families. Now we don't just have to respond to an immigration crisis and a migrant crisis with kids. Now we also have to address psychological challenges that we have caused. That is something that we need to face. I don't understand, Steve. I don't know what your religious background is, but for all of the evangelicals that support Donald Trump, all of the people who proclaim they love Jesus, I am shocked that this is the way that they go about legislating, that this is the way they go about policy making, and this is the way they go about advocating against the least of these.
What happens if you have these kids?
No, I can
in
answer
these
that
numbers,
because
Steve. What happens if these numbers are what these people think they're going to be, and you start having bad things happen? And now you got all this money for the wall. You're going to build your physical barriers. Good for you with an abuse of a 1976 emergency law. But you're not addressing this. How bad is that for you guys?
No, listen, again, I think this needs to be addressed as well. I think our asylum law needs to change. If Congress won't do that immediately, I think the president should use emergency powers to suspend the way we are currently catering to asylum, because it's being abused on a wholesale basis at our border right now, and partly because we don't have the wall. So they know they can come across illegally. They know our rules. They know if they raise their hand that they get to stay indefinitely. And again, that's not my opinion. That's what CPB tells us. And to answer Angela's question, look, here we are about to start Lent. That's what I said.
Go ahead. We're about to start Lent.
Okay.
We're about to start Lent. As a follower of Jesus, I will tell you this: the best way to help people is real economic development through capitalism. That's what they need a lot more of.
Why do you want to
in
cut
Latin
the aid
America?
to these
Not
countries?
by opening, not
Why do you
not
want
by
to cut the
opening
aid to these
our
countries?
doors wide and saying, hold on, I'll get to that. If we open our doors wide and say anyone who has a tough lot in life in the world may suddenly come to the United States at their choosing, guess what? Our currently prosperous country will no longer be prosperous. That's simply
because migrant labor hasn't helped this country, right?
I wonder how this country got prosperous too. It is from a lack of compassion, just like what you're showing, Steve.
All right. Look, Lent
we got prosperous from a lack of compassion?
No.
Oh,
we got
yeah, I'm happy to give you that history lesson in the next great debate.
We got prosperous from capitalism and innovation and ingenuity.
Steve Chow, I don't know what you got taught in history class, but we will fix that in the next great debate. You have a good night.
I didn't listen much in history class, thank goodness, because I didn't want to be taught what the secular humanist and educational system wanted me to learn about.
Angela and Steve, thank you. I got to tell you, Steve, I have never believed anything you've said more than what you just said. I believe what you just said, 110%. I don't believe you're paying attention. Thank you very much, both of you. All right. So Howard, he literally just said I didn't pay attention in history class, and you wonder, anyway.